Hi everyone and welcome back. In the last video, we installed TwinCAT 3 and got everything set up. Now it's time to create our first project and actually write some structured text code. Therefore, in this video, we will create our project and we will set up the environment to be able to run our first simulation. So we need to first open TwinCAT 3 and you go to the search bar and type TwinCAT 3 and you click on it and it opens. And I would first like to briefly present the IDE. So the IDE might look frightening at the beginning, but it's not. So this is the IDE and here we have the Solution Explorer. And this is generally where you have your text. So what I'm going to do is I am going to create a new project, and to do that you go to File and New and you select Project. And here you select the XAE project XML. This one, you select this and you have to give here a project name. So I'm going to give this name my PLC project. And if you want, you can choose a different location. I click on create and this is my new project and it has a few components. So for now, what we need is the PLC. So this is the system and we have the motion. This is for motors. This we are not going to use it. This is the PLC. It's where we are going to do the programming. And this is the safety. We also don't need it because we are not using any hardware. Here you can also add a C++ project to your entire solution or to your project. So I'm just listing it so you know that there are these possibilities that you could have. So this is for vision, where you could use cameras maybe in your project. And this is analytics, where you could use graphs and see how your data is behaving. To create a new PLC project, you click on PLC, you right click and add new item, and here you select the standard PLC project. It's possible also to select an empty PLC project, but the best thing is to use the standard, especially as a beginner, because it comes with a lot of things already organized for us. So you select on standard, and if you want, you can change the name of this PLC project or put the name that you want. So I will say I will say PLC, just like this, and add. And it's loading, and now you have here the PLC project. And here we see that in our PLC project, we have some folders. And like I said, it's because we selected the standard and it already comes with all of this organized for us. So with the other one, you could do it, but then it has nothing and you could add all of these items also per your requirement. So here we have the references, and I just would like to present generally how this is structured. So this reference is where you have the libraries, so different libraries, and you have here default libraries. So these libraries come as default in the project that you create. So these are actually libraries, and these are folders. So this is a folder DUT, which means data unit types. So here in this folder, you can put what you call DUTs, but it's not important at the moment. We will explain exactly in the future what it means. And here is GVL, which means global variable list. So here you can put global variables. We will also see that in the future. I would also like to mention that you are not restricted to respect this. So you could also put global variable in any folder, in this one, for example. And here is POU, which means Program Organizational Units. And here is where you have the main program. And when I click on the main program, this is the window that opens. So in this main program is where we are going to write our code. So, and this program has a place here where you could add variables. And this is for the visualization. So if you have a PLC visualization, if you would like to include one, you would do it definitely here, or it would be best to put it here. So that said, this is my environment, but I always prefer to work in dark mode. To change this to dark mode, this environment, you go to tools, and here general, you see you change this light to dark. That will change the environment, but also we would like to change this place, because this would change only the environment but will not change the place where we program. So to change the place where we program, also the text editor to dark, you go to TwinCAT down and PLC environment, and you look for text editor, and now it's legacy, you put it on VS dark like this, and you click OK, and now we have the dark mode. And now to write our first program, we need a few variables. And the idea is we would like just to simulate a simple motor where we have a start button that when you press the button, the motor starts. And if the button is not pressed, then the motor stops. And for this, we need two variables, and we need the variable b start button, which would be a bool. So this is just a variable and it's just a bool. What a bool means, I will explain it later, because the objective at the moment is just to get this running, and more explanation about variables and what that is, we will do it later on. So, and then I also need a b motor on, which would also be a bool. That's it. So I will say in the logic that if b start button b motor on false, and this end if is duplicated, so I remove this. So what's basically here is that if the start button is true, then we put the motor on true, so which means we start the motor, and else, which means here that the button is not pressed, or that this variable is not true, then we put the b motor false. So that's the idea for the simulation. But however, before we are able to simulate this or to see it running, we have to do some settings first in TwinCAT. And the first setting we have to do is in the system. So you come here in the system and you go to real time. And in this real time is where you have to do the setting for the cores of your PC. So what you need to do is here read from target. So this is going to read the number of cores that your PC has. So when I say read from target, it read from target, and here I can see that my PC has 6 cores. At the moment, the default is selected. However, this is a problem because the default here is not isolated. We see here that we have 7 shared core and 0 isolated core. And this shared core simply means that Windows is sharing a core with TwinCAT 3 during the runtime. So, but what we want is we want to isolate a core and say that, okay, we want to tell Windows, hey, Windows, don't use this core, just leave this core for TwinCAT 3. And to do that, you can increase here the number of isolated cores. And so I will decide to isolate 2. So I have 7 cores. So I have now 2 isolated. I increased it with this, and then I decreased here the shared core. Now we can see here that these are all shared, but the last 2 are isolated. And now I will select this core to mean that I will want my TwinCAT to work on this core. But generally, isolating 1 core is already enough. So I select this and I deselect this one. So to mean that, okay, I don't want to use a shared core, but I use just the isolated core for the program. And after I have done that, I set on target. And this we have to do just one time. So when you do this for this project, for the other project, you will not have to do that. When you have a new project, you will already see that the cores are isolated, and you will just have to select the isolated cores. You will not need to set this again on target. So it's repeating, okay, available to shared, set on target. So at the moment we have, like we said, the available is 7 and the shared is 0. So I will decrease the available maybe by 2. So, and then like you see, 5 shared and 2 isolated. And I set, and it will also ask me to reboot before the setting is taken. So when I say set new core and profile configuration on target, okay. Changes needs reboot to take effect. Reboot your system now. Yes, I'm going to reboot, but for now, I will first say no because I have to save my work. So I want to save this first, and then I will do this back again. So I put it to like this, set, and yeah, and yes, and it's starting, or it's rebooting. Now that my system has rebooted, I will open the TwinCAT 3, so you can come to the search bar and it's already here. So I just click on it. Now that it's open, I want to open now my project. So I go to File and Open Project Solution, and you go to the folder, My PLC Project, and I select this PLC, I double click, and then it will open my project. Another thing that we have to do before we are able to go to the run mode or the simulation mode is to disable the virtualization. And disabling the virtualization is again because TwinCAT 3 has to be deterministic. So it forces us first to disable the virtualization before we are able to run TwinCAT in run mode. Otherwise, it will not run because it says, I want to use the real hardware, and don't suggest to me virtual layers that I should use, but I want to directly connect to the real hardware because the task that I am doing is very important and I don't want to waste time. And disabling virtualization is actually done in the BIOS. To do this, we need to reboot our PC. And to enter the BIOS, it actually depends on the machine that we have. So this is a picture or a screenshot that I did from the website WikiHow, and here it actually tells us how you could enter the BIOS. So basically what we have to do is we have to reboot our PC, and while it is booting, we have to press a key repeatedly and then we enter the BIOS. But in general, just make sure that you enter the BIOS. So what we are going to do then is to reboot the PC, and I'm going to put the link to the website where I did this screenshot if you would like to know more about it. But I will show with 2 different PCs how to enter the BIOS and to change this setting, because it could also look different depending on the PC that you have. So to do that, I will close this and I will save again. I will now close this and I will reboot my PC. So, and when I reboot the PC, I will press on the key which corresponds to the BIOS key for my PC. So once I press reboot, I have an HP laptop here. So I'm going to press repeatedly once it's booting the escape, because I have an HP. It could be a different button on your laptop depending on which PC you have. So I press escape and it's going to enter the boot menu. So it's booting. I press continuously escape here. And now it says here, entering startup menu. It's not readable, but once I see this, I can wait because it's entering the startup menu. And at the moment, I go to BIOS setup and system options. Here I have virtualization technology, as you might see, and also virtualization technology for directed IO. So I will disable virtualization. I click enter to disable this. And once I've disabled this virtualization technology, I should exit and save. So I can go to main and then save changes and exit. And it's asking me if I want to save the changes. I say yes. And now it's starting again. And this is an Asus laptop, and here generally is either F2 or maybe the key escape. So this is what I'm doing. It's rebooting and I am repeatedly pressing the key F2 so that it enters the BIOS so we can disable the virtualization. And now I go here to the advanced. You see that the menu is a little bit different from the other one depending on which PC you have. So I go to advanced. So here it's main, and in the direction button, you see the SVM mode. So I bring it closer so it's visible. At the moment it's enabled. So what you have to do is disable the SVM mode. And that's all for this PC. So now we need to exit and save, and then save changes and exit. Save configuration. Okay, I say okay. And then now it's restarting the PC. And now that we have deactivated the virtualization from the BIOS, we can run our simulation. And to do that, we have to open the program after the reboot, and we need to build our program first to make sure that there is no error. So when I build the program, I need to see some output somewhere, and it's building. This is the output window. It says build successful, and there was no error here, 0 failed. And it means I can now start. And now to start the configuration or to start the simulation, I have to click on this button, activate configuration, because at the moment it is on config mode or configuration mode. So I click on activate the configuration, and I have to select on local. So local, which means I am running on my PC. I am not using a PLC. So I click on OK, and it's asking me to generate a license. So like I said, it's completely free, but there is always a 7-day trial license that you have to activate. So you need to activate the license, and after 7 days, the license will expire and you would have to activate it again. So I say yes. And I have to copy this. It's 62YT, and make sure also to respect the letters because it's case sensitive, and click on OK. Restart TwinCAT in run mode. Yes. And now the program is running at the moment. So we see that for now, the button, B start button is false. And for that reason, the motor on is also false. So it means that the motor, or we could simulate it in the sense that the motor is not running. But we can actually change the value of this start button because now it's false. And to change this to true, we come here on prepare, we click, and then this is true, which is selected, and we come to this icon where we write the value. So if we write this to true, then we expect that the B motor on also goes to true. And when I also come here and write it false, then the B motor on turns directly to false. And this is the simulation of our project where we use a button and to turn on maybe a motor. So, and to go back to the programming mode, you have to log out here, and this is where you can again write your code. The link to download the program which we created in this video can be found in the video description. To download the project, you will click on the project and it will take you to a GitHub page, and you can come here and click on this, and then you can download the zip file and unzip it, and you can test the simulation also on your side. And make sure you have to read the target and select the cores that you have which are set to be isolated, because we might have different cores, and it's important that if you want to run the project with which I created, you need to select the cores which are isolated in your own PC. Alternatively, TwinCAT offers the possibility of running our simulation without having to change the BIOS setting, which means without having to activate the virtualization from the BIOS, and also without having to isolate the cores in our TwinCAT project. Although this method is not as deterministic as the first, it is great for testing and running simulations and should not be used when dealing with real hardware. And to do that, we need to install a package, and therefore we have to go to the package manager and first make sure that we have closed our TwinCAT 3 and every other instances of the software Visual Studio. So we go to the search bar to search for the package user mode runtime. So user mode, and we see the package here, user mode runtime. We will select this to install, and we will apply the modifications and click yes, and now it's installing. After the installation is completed, we close, and once the installation is done, we can already see that we have the user run mode runtime here. So when you go to the toolbar and you click on this icon, you view the TwinCAT. When you right click on TwinCAT, you notice that you don't only have the start and config, now you have the UMRT default. And we are going to click on that to start. So we click on this and we go on start, and now it is started. And therefore we open our project. And once the project is open, we can see that here where we have the local, where we choose the target, we can click on that. We see that we already have here the UMRT as also UMRT default. So we click on that to select that, and we say yes. And now our project is running on the user mode runtime. And for this, just to show that we don't need to enable the virtualization and also the isolation of cores, I'm going to open this and go to the real time. I will read from target. And once I read from target, we see that we have here selected for my project the shared core. Although this is selected, the TwinCAT will still go in the run mode. So when I go to the run mode, now we see that the target is exactly this user mode runtime. So okay, I select that, and we see that now I am in run mode. I can log in and I can start my simulation, and the simulation is running. And like I said before, this is not running exactly in real time as when you're isolating the cores. However, it is also great for testing. And if for one reason or the other you don't want to change the BIOS settings, then this perfectly works for testing. That's all for this video. In the next video, we will have a deeper look into structured text. We will look at variables. We will understand what variables are so that you will have also a better understanding of the program that we created in this video. And so we will talk about variables and data types and how you can use them effectively in your programs. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.